I don't often revive ancient pieces of technology to bring to you, but this is one of those times. Howdy guys, Ponchato here, and today we're looking at the Hans CPU cooler that Reeven sent me. This thing came out almost 6 years ago, but has it stood the test of time? Let's find out. On the surface, the Hans is a pretty typical tower cooler, 120mm fan, 155mm tall, about 130 wide, and only 82mm deep. It has 4 nickel-plated heat pipes, 6mm in diameter, and it can be mounted vertically or horizontally on AM4 systems, though you will need to contact Reeven to get the AM4 bracket. That's how old this cooler is. As for TDP, Reeven doesn't give it an official number, but I'd estimate it to handle around 150 to 180 watts. The fan runs from 300 to 1500 RPM, and in line with just about every other budget CPU cooler on the market, uses a sleeve bearing. And coming in at right around $33 US, the Hans is indeed a very affordable cooler. As for the aesthetics, it may be a bit polarizing. In terms of physical shape, it's similar to most other tower coolers, a fairly monolithic rectangular column of fins supported by the heat pipes. The top plate has a nice brushed finish and Reeven's name punched into the center. Simple but attractive. The fan, though, may be the point of contention. It's black and yellow. Some people love that color scheme, but others seem to hate it with a fiery passion. I don't fully understand the hate. I happen to really like black and yellow, but I saw quite a few comments on my videos of other Reeven coolers, and people were pretty frothy about the colors. Since it's just a standard 120mm fan, if the colors are that offensive to you, you could replace it with just about any other fan you wanted. You might be thinking, well, that kind of defeats the purpose of getting a budget cooler to begin with, but as we'll see later in the video, the Hans has a good enough heatsink and mounting system that it might be one of the best contenders for a fan replacement. Now for the installation. Because the Hans uses its own backplate and top plate, it is a somewhat more involved process than more recently released coolers. It starts with putting the mounting screws through the backplate. The screws have little notches that fit into the backplate to keep them in place while you're tightening down the nuts on top. Handy little feature to have. Once the screws are in, rubber washers slide onto them to fit between the backplate and the motherboard. On the top side, nylon spacers go onto the screws to keep the mounting ring up at the right height. With those in place, the mounting ring goes on and is held in place with 4 little nuts. They can be hand tightened most of the way, and Reeven provides a tiny wrench to tighten them down fully. It's kinda wonky to use, but it does get the job done. With the mounting ring on, the next step is to apply the included thermal paste. A roughly pea-sized dab in the center of the CPU, and it's good to go. The next step is important. Always peel off the sticker on your CPU coolers. You'll have a very bad time if you don't. It was at this point I realized I put the mounting ring on the wrong way. Actually, you can mount it horizontally like that with no issues, but that's not the standard way to mount it, and I wanted to verify RAM clearance, so I had to fix it. With the mounting ring on the right way, you just line up the cooler with the CPU and twist it a bit to help spread out the thermal paste. The mounting bar goes over the base, and it's held in place with 2 screws that can be tightened with a standard Phillips screwdriver. Reeven does remind you to alternate tightening each screw so they're tensioned evenly, that way you don't bend the crossbar or the mounting ring. Finally, with the heatsink installed, all that's left is to mount the fan with the included fan clips and plug in the PWM wire. With it installed and the fan in place, the Hans completely clears the RAM slots, so for those of you with tall heat spreaders on your memory, you don't have to worry about any clearance issues with this cooler. But now let's get to the benchmarks. My test bench is a Ryzen 3 1200 overclocked to 4.1 GHz at 1.35 volts. The graphics card is a passively cooled GT1030 from MSI, and thanks to Seasonic for the 850 watt Focus Plus power supply. Both the graphics card and power supply can run fanless, meaning the only sound coming from the system is from the CPU cooler itself. Load temperatures are taken with the CPU running Prime 95, and cooling results are reported as deltas, degrees above ambient temperature. First, we'll look at the idle results. These are the noise levels and temperature deltas with no programs running and the fans at their minimum RPM. Idle delta is pretty much irrelevant in the real world, but the Hans hits just over 5 degrees, which is mostly in line with similar tower coolers I've tested. As for noise, it's quiet but not completely silent. With a minimum RPM of 300 and a sleeve bearing, which is the most basic type, the noise level is audible. Just barely, but audible nonetheless. Now we'll look at the load results. These measurements are taken with Prime 95 running and the fans at full speed to show the cooler's upper limits under maximum load. The Hans actually really impressed me here. It was only half a degree warmer than the dual tower Scythe Fuma and actually matched the temperature delta of the much more expensive Dark Rock 4 from Be Quiet. It's far from a noise champ at almost 52 decibels, but for performance this good at a price this low, that might be a concern worth overlooking. Now my favorite graph, temperature versus noise. This is under load with the fan speed varied from the minimum speed the cooler can run without thermal throttling the processor up to 100% fan speed. Compared to the much more expensive H7 Quad Lumi, the Hans runs about 4 degrees cooler through the middle and upper fan speeds, although it can't quite reach the silent noise level that the H7 can. It also dramatically outclasses the similarly priced 92mm Pure Rock Slim from Be Quiet. This shows how much performance you might be giving up with a smaller cooler, and the comparative advantage of the bigger cooler size that larger cases allow. Now here's the chart of cooler scores, a combined rating of temperature and noise. You can think of this as a metric to compare coolers running at their optimal speed, balanced between cooling performance and noise level. Mostly owing to its lackluster audio profile, the Hans only gets a 46 here, but that's not at all to say this is a lame cooler. On the contrary, it is a really high performance cooler, especially considering the price. It can just get a little loud. Finally, cooler score per dollar to show price to performance. And here we see why I've been praising the Hans so much. This is the third best value cooler I've tested, just behind the Pure Rock Slim. The important note here is that it is a better value than the oft recommended Hyper 212 Evo from Cooler Master, arguably the most popular CPU cooler lineup of all time. So if you're on a tight budget and trying to get great performance for your money, the Reeven Hans is a really great option. The black and yellow fan is probably the make it or break it piece of this puzzle. You're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. And I have a strong expectation that even if the Hans matches your ideal price and performance criteria, the color scheme is going to be the determining factor in whether or not you include it in your next upgrade or build. The installation process is a bit lengthy, owing mostly to the Hans not using the stock AM4 backplate, and needing to send an email to request an AM4 upgrade kit is a minor annoyance. Visuals and install aside, this is an objectively strong cooler. It trades blows with much larger and much more expensive coolers, though it does that at the cost of marginal noise performance. You should keep in mind though that I'm a lot more picky than most when it comes to noise, and with your fan curve set right, you probably won't hear this cooler over the noise of even a mid-range GPU. My final verdict for the Hans is this: if the cooler looks good and if temperatures rather than noise are your chief concern, the Hans is a great budget cooler that competes among the best price to performance options out there. At just over 30 bucks, it's a very hard value to beat. Follow the link in the description to pick one up for yourself. Hit subscribe and click the bell icon to get notified of new videos as soon as they're up. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe, and I want to hear from you. Do you like these colors? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I hope I helped, and I'll see you in the next video. Adjust the Hawaiian shirt first. Can't be unpresentable. This shirt doesn't stretch very well. It doesn't stretch at all. It's made out of silk, which sounds way fancier than it actually is. It's not that soft or comfortable, really. It just looks cool. Beauty is pain. Is it saying fashion is pain? Cut. Or, that's a wrap?